Hi, I'm here with Pat Carr, who's one half of the EARTHSCAPE exhibit, currently on view at Allegheny Highlands Arts and Crafts Center from now through September 2nd. Pat, talk to us a little bit about your work and how it comes in as different subject matter, but that it's all related to environmental.
Okay. When you think of a show with nature, you probably are thinking of a mountain vista and a landscape and the beautiful mountains and grassy fields and a rocky creek or something like that. But with EARTHSCAPE, I chose to look down to the details of the earth itself and not the overall picture. So in this collection I have seeds and leaves and pebbles and bird's nest and rocks and grasses and things like that.
Okay, all very tactile, and it's wonderfully so.
Yes.
We're here in front of the rock series, and it's an interesting concept in that the rocks that people seldom look at. As we were hanging it, one of our volunteers came in and was just slack-jawed, as I call it, over them. And she said, I never thought of rocks as so beautiful.
Exactly.
She was just stunned. So let me let you talk about those a little bit.
Okay, these three are in a series of 6 that I have done. It's watercolor mounted on a board, and they're covered with wax so you can touch them.
Thank you.
That
makes
okay.
me nervous.
It's okay. It's all right. And again, just looking down at a bed of rocks or pebbles and the value, the texture, the overlapping, and I want with this collection people to come up close and look at things, look at the details. And so I've put quotes on each one. One finger cannot lift a pebble, and that's a Native American quote. There's other quotes on each of these in different ways. And this one, the quotes come down like here.
So another aspect of rocks that you have shown us that I think a lot of people will be familiar with walking through a creek bed is to make a little stack. Mm-hmm. So you have a whole series of pieces called Stacked, and if you talk about these a little bit.
This was inspired from a trip to Alaska and Canada, and the stacks cairns, which were the Native Americans used stacks of rocks to point directions for marking hunting fields and that kind of thing. And so I actually have made part of my yard into a rock garden. I love rocks so much. And so I decided to do this again as rocks, but stacking them, just going out in the woods where I live. And again, it's a different technique. It's on a gessoed board, so there's no glass on it. And it's a watercolor technique over it. So just the different colors, variations, and the texture you can get by using watercolor with saran wrap. If you look in close, you see each rock is textured in a different way. And again, this is covered with wax, so it doesn't need glass and you can touch it.
Okay. This is from your group called Small Treasures, and
Yes.
I just love that because so often in this world we are in such a hurry that we don't see those small treasures, and I love the fact that you have called them to our attention. So I'm going to let you talk about this one.
Okay. The exhibit being EARTHSCAPE, I wanted things that are tactile and earthy, and so it's on a raw wood base, no paint, it's all graphite and micron pen, and you have to look super close to see all the little hatched lines on there. And just the intricacy and the complexity of the construction. How does a bird know how to build a nest? It's just incredible to me. So I did a series of 5 bird nests. Some of them have been at other shows and purchased or won awards or whatever. But there are 2 individual bird's nests in this exhibit, and then 2 other tall pieces that have several little small treasures that I find.
This group called Shadow Play is intriguing to me in that you have used thread and sticks and created leaves that have actual three-dimensional shadows within the picture frame. So if you can talk about that a little bit.
Okay. So again, I collect things, I pick up things, and I found this gorgeous decayed leaf. And I'm holding it in my hand and I said, it's just gorgeous. What can I do with that idea? And at the time I was doing a lot of embroidery on my paintings. And so I said, I've got all this thread, let's put it to use. So I went around and picked up little sticks, painted them to kind of preserve them. And then I punched holes in the backboard with an awl and just threaded the embroidery thread back and forth and back and forth. And interesting, when I was working on them in my sunroom, the sun's rising in the east and I'm working and it looks like something, and then by the time I finish and the sun sets over in the west, the shadows have gone in the other direction.
How interesting.
So if you'll walk past this and look from left to right, you'll see the shadow play, which is the title.
Okay.
And there were a series of 7 of these, some with just one in there and some with several different leaves in them. Okay, this is something totally different, but in the whole show, in the exhibit with the 30 pieces that are in the show, in the back of my mind I'm thinking about our environment and the climate crisis and endangered species. This book I actually call Untitled because I don't have words to express in writing my thoughts about that. So this is an altered book where I've come in and cut away all the words from the book. So it's like the words have fallen out of my head and out of the book. And then I've woven mulberry papers through here. And inside is a piece of cork, and the back is a piece of dyed paper that has plants sun-bleached onto it.
I'm here with Jennifer Spoon, who is a handmade paperwork artist and a computage artist with 44 of her absolutely stunning works in a show called EARTHSCAPE. It will be at the Allegheny Highlands Arts and Crafts Center in Clifton Forge, Virginia through September 2nd, and you really don't want to miss it. Jennifer, tell me a little bit about these pieces, and we'll start here because they have such wonderfully irregular edges.
Okay. Well, I always try to work on something new, and when you're making paper, you don't have to be confined to a rectangle. Although the frames that you use to make paper are rectangular, you can couch them, that's put them down in different sheets so you get different shapes. So I'm always trying to figure out a way to get away from a rectangle, although I like the neutral squares that you can make, and I've made some frames that are square. And then I paint with colored paper pulp, which is a sort of a much more liquid version of the paper.
And more painstaking and time-consuming, I would assume.
Well, yes and no. But and sometimes I like to let the pulp kind of run off the page too. So
that's one of the things I really like about handmade paper. Jennifer, where'd you go to school?
Oh gosh. Well, for paper making, I went to school in Kyoto Seika Daigaku, which is a university in Kyoto, and I was doing printmaking and paper making, and I kind of fell out of the printmaking and went totally into paper making.
Okay.
I've got degrees, but none of the degrees from University of Michigan, Michigan State, and what used to be Randolph-Macon Women's College.
Oh, okay.
But I didn't do paper making at any of those places.
Right. These three in particular, because I think they show 3 whole different approaches to what you've done with the
Right.
paper making.
So,
Let's do Japanese traditions first.
and this is a combination of a Japanese sword guard.
Okay.
And I've cooked different, 3 or 4 layers, and then you can use a mat to make some texture in the paper. Then just collage, and these are toothpicks from Japanese.
Oh, wonderful.
And I've snuck in a letter here, and this is Japanese writing that I took a picture of somewhere. So I like to do these kind of collages that are fairly symmetrical. But then I switched to, and I call it computage, and that comes from a friend who is now deceased, but she worked on her computer, and her name was Leslie Bloom. And anyhow, I just think it's not computer art. It's done on a computer, a lot of it, but and this takes a picture of the pulp painting, a screen that I had with Japanese characters, and composites them, and then I print them on handmade paper. So
Okay.
It allows me to try something out. Sometimes I'll construct something and it doesn't exist except in the photo, and then I can put pieces of paper together, take a picture of it, and manipulate it.
Oh,
So,
okay, cool.
and
And
this
then
is
leaf cocoon?
this is actually a couple of leaves in very thin paper, dyed with natural dyes, and then collaged onto another sheet of handmade paper.
Let's talk about Rain on Waves for a minute.
Okay.
Rain on Waves is made with handmade paper and, say it for me, please.
Kaki shibu.
Okay.
Okay, kaki is Japanese for persimmon, and what kaki shibu is fermented persimmon juice, and it gives. These were white originally, and these were lighter gray. It gives paper a rich brown color, and it waterproofs it. And so the red umbrellas that you see or think of from Japan,
Right.
they're coated with kaki shibu over red, and it's just it's kind of a fascinating substance. And I was bringing some back from Japan, and I had these liter bottles in my really well wrapped, because the stuff it will stain, in my luggage, and I thought, am I going to get this through the
Customs, yeah.
customs? Japanese guy, I told him what it was, and he just, no problem. He knew what it was, but and fortunately I didn't get asked about it when I got into this country.
Well, that's probably a good thing.
Yeah, right.
It's a beautiful color.